BBC meeting. That's what my wife says. Anyway, so the other thing is that we go out into these exotic. We get to see all the things that you see on screen. We get to see those things firsthand. But believe me, it's no vacation. When the temperatures are 40 degrees Celsius, or there's snakes or bugs, or the food is kind of sour. It's hard work, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because I get to go and see and do things that people only dream of. So that's a great opportunity. And then we get to work with some of the best people in the world. We work with scientists, with wildlife guards, with researchers, with cameramen, with artists, with musicians, everybody. And they're all at the top of their game. I mean, the BBC brand attracts the very best people, the very best technicians. So it's often the case that I go out on location and I'm the person who has the least amount of experience. And that's a really exciting thing for me. And then the cameras, the technology are amazing, amazing, amazing. The 3D cameras, we put them on a system we call the beam splitter, which is one camera shoots straight down and the other camera shoots this way, and then there's a mirror and all kinds of crazy cables and computers. It's like science fiction, some of this stuff. And it works like science fiction. Sometimes it's perfect, sometimes it's not so perfect. But it allows us to come back and get stuff that no one's ever seen before. And that's a really, really nice opportunity. And then last but not least, it's my job. I get paid to do this. I don't have to pay somebody else. So every month when a paycheck comes in, my wife says, hey, we're not bankrupt. I say, fantastic, what a bonus. Because I would do this for free. It's just not about the money for me. So the challenges that I face on a regular basis in documentary filmmaking, it's the usual kinds of things that you would think about. Where are we going to get food for the crew today? Or what are the hotel situations like? But the things that are most challenging are typically the things that we just can't control. So what do you think those things would be? The number one item is the weather. Just can't control the weather. So oftentimes we go out into these locations and we're expecting dry, sunny conditions, and then we get rain. We get rain for 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week. And that can be really challenging because there's nothing we can do about it. The other thing that we face oftentimes are animals that simply don't behave or aren't where they're supposed to be, and that can be a real challenge. There was, on Enchanted Kingdom, there was a sequence about flamingos at Lake Victoria. Every year, like clockwork, 1 million flamingos come to Lake Victoria. And so we planned our shoot around that, and everybody was confident it was going to happen. And the ranger there at the lake, we would call and say, how are the flamingos doing? And he'd say, they're not here yet. I'd say, really? Because they're supposed to be there. He'd go, yeah, normally they're here. A couple of weeks would go by. Okay, now, how many flamingos are there? He goes, they're still not here. Like 1 million flamingos went missing for a month. No one knew where they were. They weren't where they were supposed to be, where they started, and they weren't where they were supposed to be when they ended their journey. And a lot of people had theories, but nobody knew for sure. And so we were thinking maybe we're not going to be able to film the flamingos, and this was crazy. And then finally we called one day, and the ranger, William Kimisop, said, 1,000 showed up live. I was like, well, that sounds good, but 1,000, I could go to the wild animal park and get 1,000 flamingos. That's not going to help me. And then a couple of days later, 10,000. And then a few days after that, it was 50,000. And within about 2 weeks, almost 1 million flamingos had landed at the lake. So then we could go in and film there. But, that sort of thing is beyond my control. There's nothing I can do about it. If the flamingos decide not to come today or this season, I can't chase them and corral them into the lake. So that's one of the biggest challenges. But there's some great rewards too with this job. I think for me, the best part of it is just the people that I can get to work with. When you go out on location and you're filming in a really remote and difficult part of the world, the people that you're with, they become like your family. So you have to get along with them. And I've really, really enjoyed the crew that we've had on Enchanted Kingdom. They become like my brothers and sisters because we've been in some really difficult and scary locations. So, we're all very good friends now that the film is over and we get to work together on other stuff. So the people that I get to meet and the people that I get to work with, It's one of the best parts of the job. The other thing is the places that we get to go and see. I've been to some of the most remote locations on the planet and seen the most amazing things firsthand, like just being there and watching it unfold before my very eyes. So that's a real privilege and a real reward. And then finally, the nicest thing for me is, like on Enchanted Kingdom, we went out, I think it took us about 3 years of hard work to make that movie. And when we're out there, sometimes you wonder, like, what's this all going to be? You're not really sure how it's going to play. So one of the nicest things is when the movie's finished, to go and see it in a movie theater with people like you who are seeing it for the first time and see their reactions to some of the sequences and how the movie affects them. And that can be really inspiring for us. The next time we go out in the field and it's 1,000,000 degrees and the snakes are all around and the water's not quite fresh, we remember that all of that is going to pay off when we're in a movie theater and we get to see our film with a bunch of audience members. So those are the biggest rewards for me. But at the end of the day, they said, if you weren't a filmmaker, what would you do instead? It's really hard. Like, this is who I am. From the time that I was a child, when I was about your age, I was already starting down the road to become the filmmaker that I am today. So it's never too early to start, to find something that you love to do and pursue it with a passion and find a way to make that passion a big part of your life. And that's been a really successful strategy for me. So that's basically it. That's who I am and how I got started. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have and talk about anything that you want to discuss.
Fantastic. Wow, that was really, really interesting listening to you talk there. And before the children ask their questions, just a couple of things I wanted to pick up, because what I listened there, what I took from what you were saying, was that you do something that you love and that you're passionate about and you're really relevant, it sounds like, every day. And I think that's something that we would all want the kids to believe in us, and they leave their schools and so on. They keep searching for something that they do that they're passionate about. And the other thing that you told us was that you failed lots of times before you got to where you were, and you did things that weren't great, and you made mistakes.
Absolutely. In fact, those mistakes are what made me successful, because you have to learn from those mistakes and you have to keep trying. There's nothing worse than what we call filmmakers' regret, which is we should have tried this or we could have done that, but we were scared or we pulled back at the last second. If nothing else, if you try and fail, you can say you tried. If you don't try, then you'll never know how it would have turned out.
There you go. Fantastic. That's great to hear from you. And another message for us all, that we just shouldn't fear failure, we should give things a go and be happy to learn from our mistakes. That's been fun. Can we get some of the children to ask you some questions now? Is that okay?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, so if you come here, this is Ibiana.
Hi, Anna. Hello.
Big voice. Read your question out to Miles.
The hippo story. So that's probably the best story. We were filming at Victoria Falls at a place called Cataract Island, which is right in the middle of the Zambezi River before it goes over to the waterfall. And every morning we would show up and we had to row a raft across the river to where the island was. And we saw a hippo there every morning, and he was just chilling, checking us out. And hippos are dangerous, and we knew that he seemed pretty relaxed. And so we had a rule that every afternoon we would finish filming so we could be in the raft and headed back to the shore 15 minutes before sunset. And one afternoon just got later and later, and it was getting dark. And I remember people in the boat, too much equipment in the boat, and we started rowing back across the river. And because we were so heavy, the boat was sitting low and it was moving really slow. And that's when the hippo decided to take his turn. And so he came from underneath and knocked the boat up in the air. A bunch of equipment went flying into the river. And then everybody in the boat was paddling crazy. Some of them paddling forward, some of them paddling backwards. We were all just panicked. And then the hippo came and bit down on the side of the boat and exploded one of the pontoons. So now we're sinking, and we're only like 100 meters from the waterfall. So we're paddling even faster. We made it back to the island where we started, and then we pulled all of our equipment in from the water, and the hippo was just sitting out there like, I dare you to come back and try it again. So we called for help. The boat came in and picked us up and took us the long way around, so we didn't have to go past the hippo. It was pretty scary when it happened, but it's a good story.
Fantastic. Does that answer your question? Anything else? Fantastic. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. I love telling that story.
Sounds amazing. What a fantastic experience to tell now, anyway.
Now, yes.
Next, this is Ollie from Year 4. Come on, Ollie. Okay. You guys do this together.
Hello, Ollie. So the fiery underworld is a volcano called Miragongo, and it's actually a giant hole in the ground. And what happens is you get up along the rim. So think of it like a cereal bowl, and the volcano, the lava is down in the bottom of the cereal bowl. So you stay up along the edge, and then we use very long lenses that give us a chance to zoom in on the lava. So we're probably 300 feet away, 400 feet away from the lava. You can still feel it. It's still really, really hot, but you're not so close to it that it's dangerous. Thanks for your question, Ollie. You're welcome.
Great, thanks,
All right.
And you've got another one here. This is Christina, Year 3. Christina, class.
Hello, Christina. What's your question today? That's a really good question. I think that what we wanted to do with the film is to tell people that nature is a cool place, and that many ways nature can be more astounding, amazing, more magical than anything you see in Hollywood movies or on PlayStation or anywhere else. So we wanted a title that conveyed that sense of magic, but also the idea that nature is a kingdom. It has all these different realms, just like any other kingdom, whether it be from Hobbit or Game of Thrones or something like that. That you have the mountains, you have ocean, you have the deserts, all these different things. So the title Enchanted Kingdom was intended to try and tell audiences that there's something magical to see here and something almost mythical, like some of these classic examples. And I feel like it did a pretty good job. Hello. Like nothing you've ever seen. And it was warm, and we were going to get wet anyway. There's a gyrostake-like mount that keeps the camera level and goes on a helicopter. So when the helicopter is flying around, the camera stays flat and level. But it's this big piece, and it weighs 1 million pounds, and it costs $1 billion. We also have, as I mentioned before, for shooting 3D, we have these beam splitter rigs, which are very bespoke, custom units just for making 3D films. And each one has 2 cameras, 2 lenses, 2 batteries, it stakes all of that stuff up. A cable is like an octopus coming up from all of it. If you see the picture, it looks like an alien piece of science fiction equipment. It's pretty great. But we had all of that stuff and a lot more. And you can see and learn more about it if you watch the behind the scenes stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Dan Adams, will you come down? I'll have this question.
Uh-oh.
Say hello to Mark.
Hi, Dad. The alien sands. Well, everywhere else that we went in Africa, there was some amount of water. Whether it was in the oceans, where obviously there's a ton of water, or in the rainforest, where there's water, even in the air, you see the mist in the air. But in the desert, the alien sands, there's almost no water at all. And trying to find water is amazing. So it's kind of like being on the surface of Mars. You know that somewhere there's some water, but you don't see it. And the animals there have adapted in a way that makes them look like the Namako chameleon. He looks like something from outer space with these pebbled features on his face, this crazy long tongue that he uses to catch food. And the animals have come up with really interesting techniques and ways of protecting themselves, staying out of the sun, but finding food and water that isn't like anything we've seen anywhere else on Earth. So for me, that Namib Desert is very much like an outer space experience.
Great question, Dan. Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you.
Well done. Thanks, Mark. One of our young children now is going to ask a question. Oliver from reception. Oliver here. Hello, Oliver. Say hello.
Hello, Doctor.
Say hello to the world.
Hi there.
What's your question?
That's a really good question, Oliver. I think that all the animals that are in the film are remarkable for different reasons. But I like the silverback gorilla. I think that he's really good because people say he looks like me or I look like him. But my favorite animal is probably the gelato monkey because I'd never seen those before this film. I know that in the UK you guys have had those on some of your TV programs. But they were a new animal to me. And they're amazing. They have these long flowing manes, and when the wind is blowing, you see the hair moving around, and big scary fangs. And, you know, they're remarkable animals, but they're not very big. They're only about 2.5, 3 feet tall, and they're really docile. So when we first went to film with them, we would set up the camera in the grass, and they would start walking towards us, and we would just stay really quiet and wait. And they knew we were there, and they would just come and sort of lounge around next to us, like to within arm's reach. Now, I would never pet a wild animal, but these animals were so tame and so relaxed that it would have been easy to just reach out and touch one. So, anyway, I like the gelato monkeys the best. Thank you for your good question.
Yeah, great question. Well done, Oliver. Good boy. This is Sarah now from year 6. Is that right?
We're going from one extreme to the other. Hi, Sarah. Will we make a follow-up film to Enchanted Kingdom? I don't think so. I mean, it's a unique experience and it sort of stands alone, but we do have other nature film in development right now that I think will be as good or even better than Enchanted Kingdom. So watch this space, but we're developing some really interesting projects right now. We do have an IMAX film, Wild Africa, which is based on Enchanted Kingdom. That will be in theaters sometime at the end of the year, so you might be able to see that if you go to London, for example, to the Science Museum. See it.
That's right. Yeah, well done, Sarah. Thanks, Mark. And also from year 6, this is Lily Miles. Say hi, Lily.
Hello, Lily. Becoming a producer was a really long journey. I don't think that I would have made it if I wasn't really a fan of films and filmmaking, because it's just so hard. Like I told you before, it takes years and years and years. But I started out, before I was a producer, I started out as a PA, a production assistant. Who's the person that gets coffee, picks up the mail, makes sure the office is clean, and then I was able to work from that into a production coordinator's job, which is the person that makes sure all the schedules are done right and that the director gets picked up at the airport. And slowly but surely, I worked my way up the ladder. I was a film editor for 10 years, so I got to put movies together, which was really exciting. And that helped me a lot to understand how movies need, what movies need to have to be successful. And then slowly but surely, I started producing visual effects and then short films and then pretty soon documentary film. So that whole process took about 10 years almost, a long time. But it was something that I knew I wanted to do from the beginning, and I really enjoyed the process. Sorry, one last question. You asked for my tips for producing. I think that it's important. So, a lot of the time when we're out in the field, things aren't going very well. People get kind of panicky. The hippo attack is a good example. So the number one tip that I could give people is to stay calm. And I know that you hear that and you see it on t-shirts, stay calm and carry on and stuff. But when everybody else is going crazy, the person who's most valuable is the person who can stay calm and figure out what to do next. And that's a big part of my job. The other thing that I think that's really useful as a producer is to be flexible, to recognize that other people sometimes have good ideas, that sometimes the conditions will dictate some different approach, that you need to be open-minded and ready to try different things to be successful. If you just get it in your head, I'm going this way and I'm only going this way, the world will show you how unique you are. You know, if you're flexible, you can adapt to conditions, or you can work with people that maybe aren't your best friends, but that can bring something positive to the project, then you're going to be in a much better place. So thank you for that question.
That's a great question, a great answer there as well. More good advice for us all. Okay, Miles, this is Miles.
Nice.
Say hi to Miles, Miles.
Hello, Michael.
Okay, what's your question, Miles?
Oh, that's a great question. We couldn't make it do without help from the people in Africa. In every country we go to, we have what we call local fixers, for people that live there and know the land and know the animals and know what to do and not to do. So every time we go to a country, we find a local fixer. But then we also had help from just people that lived in villages and things like that. You know, we had 2 tons of equipment. I can't carry 2 tons of equipment. And my camera guys wouldn't carry 2 tons. They'd just say, we quit and walk off. So we had to find local people to help us carry all that equipment into the different locations. On Mount Kenya, I think we had 240 different people helping us carry the crane and the camera almost to the top of Mount Kenya. So without the local people there to help us, we would have been in real trouble.
Great question, Miles. Yeah, good.
Thanks, Miles.
We're going to combine these next 2 questions. I'd like them to answer together. So, Godard and Lily, when we come together, they're kind of on the same thing. So, if you want to read them both, I think Miles might answer them together. So, say hi to Miles.
Hi, girls. How are you?
Okay, and Lily, you can ask your one as well.
Okay, those are excellent questions. You girls are going to be filmmakers, I can tell already. So, if everybody just take your hand and put it over one eye, you can do that, all right? Okay, what you're seeing right now is just 2D. It's just a flat image. It's just like looking at a picture on a wall. When you have both eyes, what you get is 3D this way, and where they come together is what we call stereopsis. It's the ability to see stereo, 2 eyes, 3D. What does that mean? That means that you get to see depth. Like if you look to the back of the room, you have a sense of how deep that space is and where things sit in that space. So we wanted to make the film in 3D because unlike television, which is just like looking at a painting, 3D is like looking at a window. When you see a 3D movie, you actually think you can reach out and touch the fish or feel the silverback's hair. So that makes the experience much more immediate, much more real. How do you make a 3D movie? You have to go a little crazy, to be honest. It's very, very hard. But what we try and do is take all that crazy equipment, all of those electronics and things, to a place and do all the time every day, which is to show you the world with 2 eyes. Each camera is like one of your eyes. So when we put those cameras together, we film the gorillas, what we're to see if you were there. And then when we come back, we put it all together and you can see it in 3D on the movie screen and have the same experience. So that's how you make a 3D film in a very overly simplified way. But those are good questions. Thanks, girls.